A father's love is a quiet, constant force. While the world may celebrate mothers with flowers, chocolates, and grand gestures, fathers often express their love in more subtle, quiet ways. It might not always be loud or flashy, but it is always steadfast, reliable, and deeply meaningful. Through endless sacrifices, long hours of work, and unspoken care, a father's love creates the foundation of strength upon which a family builds its dreams. This story takes you on a journey through the life of one man, John, and his relationship with his father, David. From the small, daily gestures of care to the big, pivotal moments, John's relationship with his father reveals the depth of fatherly love. As John becomes a father himself, he begins to understand what it means to love unconditionally and the sacrifices involved in being a dad. This is not just a story about family, it is a testament to the power of love that transcends generations. Part 1: The beginning of fatherhood, childhood and early memories, **. John's childhood was one of simplicity and warmth. David, his father, was a hard-working man, and John grew up knowing that his father loved him. Yet, as a child, John didn't always understand the sacrifices his father made. It wasn't until he grew older that the realization began to dawn on him. For much of his early years, John only knew that his father was always there, providing, guiding, and quietly supporting him. David worked as a factory worker, often taking on extra shifts to ensure the family had enough. John would fall asleep each night to the sound of his father's voice calling from the kitchen, asking him to finish his homework or to do something constructive with his free time. David wasn't the type of father to be present at every school event, but when he was home, his presence was unwavering. He would often sit with John at the dinner table, talking about life and teaching him how to be a good man, someone who worked hard, had integrity, and loved his family. One of John's earliest memories was of his father teaching him how to ride a bicycle. It was a small moment, but it stuck with John for years. He was nervous, but his father's steady hand on the back of the bike and the soft words of encouragement gave him the courage to keep going. "It's okay to fall, son," David had said, his voice calm and reassuring. "But you get back up every time. That's what makes you strong." At the time, John didn't realize how important this lesson would become. It wasn't just about riding a bike, it was about life itself. His father was teaching him resilience, showing him that failure wasn't something to be feared but an opportunity to learn and grow. Part 2: The sacrifices fathers make, the silent work behind the scenes, **. As John entered his teenage years, his relationship with his father began to shift. No longer a child, John started questioning why his father had to work so much. It seemed like David was always busy, always working. John couldn't understand why his father couldn't attend every important event, from school plays to parent-teacher meetings. His friends' fathers were always around, always available. One summer, when John was 14, he had a big soccer match that he had been preparing for all season. He wanted his father to be there, to watch him play and cheer him on from the sidelines. But when game day arrived, David was nowhere to be found. John felt a pang of disappointment. Why wasn't his father there? Didn't he care? After the match, John found his father sitting at the kitchen table, looking tired but content. Without even asking, David knew what John was thinking. "I'm sorry I missed your game, son. You know I would have loved to be there." His voice was soft, filled with regret. "But I needed to be at work. I want to make sure you have the opportunities one never had. This job might take me away from you sometimes, but everything I do is for you. You'll understand one day." It wasn't until years later, when John had his own children, that he truly understood the depth of his father's sacrifice. David had missed countless moments to provide for the family, to ensure that John had the chance to chase his dreams. He worked hard, often at the expense of his own happiness, because he believed in something greater, giving his family a better life. John never knew how much of David's own dreams and passions were sacrificed for the well-being of their family. David had dreams of becoming a professional artist, but the realities of life and the need for steady income forced him to set those dreams aside. John realized, too late, that his father's absence during those pivotal moments wasn't out of neglect, but rather out of love and responsibility. David was the unsung hero of their family's story, never asking for recognition or praise for his tireless efforts. Part 3: The Silent Guidance, Fathers as Mentors, ****. As John moved into adulthood, his life became filled with questions and decisions. He had left home for college, and as he entered the workforce, he struggled with his direction. John had been so sure of his dreams when he was young, but now, at 23, he found himself at a crossroads. He had a job that paid well, but it didn't bring him joy. He thought about his father who had worked for years in a job he didn't love just to support his family. How could John find the courage to pursue his passion when his father had never been able to? One night, after a particularly difficult week at work, John called his father for advice. He poured out his heart, unsure of what to do. "Dad, I don't know if I'm on the right path. I feel stuck, like I'm wasting time in a job that doesn't make me happy. But I don't know how to make a change." David, now older and wiser, paused for a long moment before speaking. "Son, life isn't always about doing what you love. It's about doing what's right. Sometimes that means making sacrifices for the people you love. But you also have to find a balance. If you're unhappy, you need to find the courage to change. Don't just settle for what's easy." John realized that his father wasn't telling him to give up his dreams, but to approach them with responsibility. David had made the difficult decision to put his own passions on hold for the sake of his family. But that didn't mean John had to do the same. His father's love wasn't just about giving, it was about teaching John how to make choices that would enrich his life without sacrificing his integrity. As John matured, he came to understand that his father's mentorship was never forceful or demanding. David had been a quiet guide, offering gentle advice when John needed it most. And it was this subtle, unwavering guidance that became the foundation for John's own approach to fatherhood. Part 4: The Role of Fatherhood in Family, Becoming a Father, **. When John became a father himself, everything changed. The birth of his daughter, Lily, was a pivotal moment. The deep, emotional connection he felt in those first moments was overwhelming. He could no longer deny the immense responsibility he had as a father. He looked at Lily and saw the same vulnerability he had once felt as a child. John thought back to his own childhood and the lessons his father had taught him. David had worked long hours, made countless sacrifices, and had never once complained. Now, John faced the same challenges. He wanted to be present for every milestone in Lily's life, to be there for her every step of the way. But he also knew that, just like his father, there would be moments when he would have to work, make sacrifices, and miss out on things in order to provide for his family. The first few months of fatherhood were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and late-night feedings. John, like all new fathers, struggled with balancing his work, his wife, and his new role as a father. But what kept him going was the understanding that this was just the beginning. He was learning, evolving, and growing, just as his father had done before him. One evening, when Lily was about 5 months old, John sat with his father on the porch. The sky was painted with hues of pink and orange as the sun set, and Lily was asleep in her crib inside. John looked at his father and said, "Dad, I don't know how you did it. This is so much harder than I imagined. I don't want to miss any moment with Lily. How did you manage it all?" David smiled gently. "I didn't have a choice, son. I did what I had to do. You will too. But I'll tell you this, take the time to enjoy the small moments. The big milestones are important, but it's the little moments that matter the most. Don't rush through them." Part 5: The Full Circle, The Later Years of Fatherhood, **. As the years passed, John's relationship with his father deepened. David, now in his 70s, was slowing down. The once vibrant man who had worked tirelessly for decades was now content to spend his time with family. John found himself leaning on his father for advice more than ever, grateful for the wisdom David had accumulated over the years. One day, while watching his father take a nap in his favorite chair, John realized how much he had come to rely on David, not just as a father, but as a mentor and a friend. Time had passed, and the roles had subtly shifted. Now, John was the one helping his father, taking care of him as he had once been cared for. It was during one of these quiet afternoons that John sat down next to David and asked a question that had been on his mind for years. "Dad, was there ever a time when you regretted the sacrifices you made for us? Did you ever wish you could have done things differently?" David looked at John, his eyes twinkling with the wisdom of experience. "Son, I don't regret a single thing. The only thing I ever wanted was for you to have a better life than I did. And I see it now, in you and your children. That's all that matters." In that moment, John realized something profound. His father's love wasn't just about providing for him, it was about creating a foundation upon which future generations could thrive. David had given everything for John, not just in material terms, but in the legacy of love, guidance, and sacrifice that he had passed on. Part 6: Passing on the Legacy of Love ***. As John continued to raise his own children, he found himself repeating the same lessons his father had taught him. He made time for his children, even when work was demanding. He sacrificed for their futures, just as David had sacrificed for his. And, most importantly, he passed on the wisdom that had been handed down to him. One evening, as John watched his children laugh and play in the backyard, he understood fully what his father had meant all those years ago. It wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up. It was about being there when it mattered most. As John's children grew older, he watched as they faced their own challenges and began their own journeys. He saw his own values, his father's values, reflected in their actions and decisions. The legacy of love, sacrifice, and resilience continued to live on, passed down from one generation to the next. And as John held his grandchildren in his arms, he realized that the love his father had given him was not something that could be quantified or measured. It was something that would live on in the hearts of those who had been touched by it. The end. Did you enjoy this story? Like the video and comment. Subscribe channel. See you the next video. Have a nice day.